So the first data source we're going to look at today is called On the Map. It's from the census. It's the Longitudinal Employer Household Dynamics site, so sometimes you'll see it referred to as LEHD, but more often I think folks just refer to it as On the Map. So all of the examples today, we're going to use my hometown, Lima, Ohio. So in order to find a certain location to analyze, you go here to the search bar and you search. We're going to find Allen County, Ohio. And we're going to perform analysis on the selection area. And so the data that On the Map have is incredibly rich data about folks who live in your county, folks who work in your county, and you don't have to do counties, by the way. You could do cities. You can see over here on the left, you can do zip codes, you can do MSAs, you can do tracts, you can do block groups, you can do school districts. It's incredibly rich data. The challenge that you have working with it is that the data is not updated particularly regularly. And so you can see here under the year column, the most recent data that On the Map has right now is 2019. And previously, like within the last 2 years, the most recent data it has was like 2015. So it's not particularly updated frequently, like say the census would be updated every year. But again, it's an incredibly rich data source in terms of analyzing different characteristics of your communities, both the folks who live in your communities and the folks who work in your communities. And so when you come to this page, the analysis settings, after you click on perform analysis on the selection area, start to the left. The big kind of differentiator in the analysis is whether you choose the home area, which are people who live in your selection area, or the work area, which is the people who work in your selection area. They could live wherever they want, but they work in what area you've chosen to analyze. So we're going to start here with the home area. So first off, I'm just going to show you kind of what the data is for workers. So we're going to look at all workers, but again, you could differentiate. You could look at young workers, middle-aged workers, old workers. There's a bunch of different differentiators, but let's just go with all workers for now. We'll do the most recent year, so 2019 data, and let's look at all jobs, so all the jobs that workers have. So you can see, so here's the density of essentially where people live, and you can see we've got workers age 29 or younger, which we can click and filter. So these are all of our younger workers. These are all of our middle-aged workers. So you can see there's some geographic visualization techniques already built into On the Map. I wouldn't say it's the most advanced or the most attractive visualization, but certainly for a firm or an organization that did not have access to ArcGIS, the desktop version, this will suffice. I mean, this is not the worst thing in the world. You can also see here on the right, so we've got earnings, so we can look at workers who earn less than $1,200 a month, middle income or more. And then we've got industry sector, so we can see, for instance, where folks who work in agriculture, these primary industries where they live. We can look at these other industries as well. Just click reset the table. So again, it's incredibly rich, and we can go back and redo the analysis to look at work. So now we're just looking at jobs in our communities. So these are where the jobs are in your communities. So again, we could see where the jobs held by younger workers are. We can see where their earnings. So again, jobs that, let's say, pay less money, so pay less than $1,250 per month. And we could see, again, the industries. So we could see where folks, for instance, where the construction jobs are in our communities, or where the manufacturing jobs are in our communities. And again, this is a passable visualization technique. If this is something, if you are a very small firm and you don't have access to GIS software, you can screenshot this and export it and include your table in any type of deliverable. And again, that can have some impact. One thing that I know is a hot topic in lots of communities is the idea of moving to hybrid work and the fact that people might be commuting longer distances in association with their work. For instance, if someone only has to work 1 day a week at their job or 2 days a week at their job, they might be willing to have a longer commute than if they had to work every day, if they had to go into that job 5 days a week. And so on the map also has really rich commuting data. So we're going to look now at folks who live in this county, so folks who live in Allen County, but we're going to look at where they work. So this is the destination analysis that on the map provides. So we're going to stick with counties, for instance. We're going to do the most recent year. I'm going to click go. I'm going to zoom out a little bit since we're going to be looking at counties in the region. And so by default it shows the top 10, but you can expand it to show, for instance, the top 50. So you can see, of all the folks who live in Allen County, about 56.7%, so a little bit over half of them, also work in the county. But that also means, conversely, that about 43% of them work outside the county as of 2019. And so you can see we've got ranks for counties for where all these workers, or where all these residents work. First being Auglaize County, which is one county to the south. But again, this is type of data that could be really useful in your communities because we're talking about hybrid work and we want to understand where folks who live in our communities already were commuting to, with the idea that in this kind of COVID world of hybrid work and remote work, we're going to see those patterns, I think, continue and expand. But my guess is, and I think most of you would agree, is that wherever folks were already commuting long distance to, folks are going to be more likely to commute long distance to those. And so, like I said earlier, like this is a passable, on the map has a passable visualization, interface here. So this map is not particularly the best because all of those counties are all the same colors. But I think we can do better, and there are some free tools that we can do better, which I'm going to show you now. So in order to get the data out of on the map, we go over here to the Export Geography option, and we're going to click a CSV. A CSV file is just like an Excel file in a lot of ways. We're going to hit Export. So we're going to download the geography. So this is actually the data. And it's going to download into a zip file. And then the specifications, that's just the data dictionary, which you're also going to find useful. And so we're going to download that as well. And so I've got my data here now open, unzipped onto my desktop. And you can see here, this is essentially the data that we were seeing before on the map, on the map site. It's a bit of a tongue twister. And now when you open the data dictionary, what you'll see is that this first column here are essentially all the jobs, or where all of your residents live by county. And then all of these columns to the right are kind of breaking that down like you saw on the map site. So workers by age, workers by income, and industry as well. So because we don't care about this for the purpose of this visualization, I'm just going to get rid of those columns. I'm also going to get rid of this because we know they're all counties. The one column I'm going to add here is a percent. Yes, it's fine. So we're going to add that as well, and this is all going to go into the visualization that we're going to be creating here in a second. So we're going to close this out. We're going to save this as an Excel file. We'll just save it in the download file. So we're going to open it up in Tableau now. So Tableau is a very powerful data visualization infographic maker. I feel like Tableau in the last 2 years has blown up because every state's COVID dashboard was coded in Tableau. And so I feel like we've all interacted with Tableau at least once in the last 2 years. The free version is very powerful for making data visualizations that can really be impactful in any type of analysis or planning efforts that you're doing. So again, it's a great tool, but it's one that takes a very long time to really master and to get really the hang of it, because it's not the most intuitive program that you've ever used in your entire life. Starting with the opening screen, which you'll see here. So what you're going to do is you're going to connect to a file, and this is an Excel file. We're going to open that up in our downloads, the most recent download file. And when the file downloads and opens up in Tableau, this is what you'll see. So you'll see that ID, which is that county ID, the county label, the total number of jobs that people have who, again, live in your county, but this is where their job is, and then the percent of the total. And so the first thing that you'll need to do is you'll need to tell Tableau essentially what all of these variables represent. We're going to start with the ID variable. So the nice thing about Tableau is that you can map in it, and it all relies on the census FIPS code, which is a fairly standard code the census uses for states, for counties, down to census tract. Although I will say in the free version of Tableau, you cannot map census tracts, but I believe you can in the paid version. So in order to essentially tell Tableau that this first column here is a FIPS code and it is something that we can map, you click this arrow right here and you go to geographic role. You tell it it's in fact a county. Decimal, that works fine. And so once we're ready, essentially, once we've told Tableau that this is geographic data, that it is something we can analyze, the first thing we're going to do is create a sheet. And this sheet is where we're going to build essentially the map that's going to be at the height of the visualization, or the main focus of the visualization. And so Tableau really operates on a drag and drop system. So the drag, essentially you drag the rows. So think of this how you would do a table in a lot of ways. So our rows in this case are going to be our geographic units, and then our columns are going to be essentially the total number of jobs that folks have, that folks are commuting to. And then over here on the right, these are the different ways that Tableau can actually visualize the data. So it could do a very messy pie chart, or it can do a map, which we're going to click right here. And so this is our data essentially mapped. You can see we can hover over. There are pop-ups, like you'll see in a lot of online interactive maps. But the pop-ups don't tell us a lot. And so the first thing we're going to do is we're actually going to drag label to the tooltip, which is what Tableau calls the pop-up. So now that label, which is essentially our county in text form, so now that makes a lot more sense. Now the other challenge that we have is that S000 row there, which are essentially where our residents work. So we actually need to go back to our data source, and we need to rename this. So we're going to click on that arrow again, and we're going to rename to where Allen County residents work. My advice on this is never be afraid to give a variable a long name if that long name is descriptive. And so now we see where Allen County residents work. So right here we see that there are 1,400, roughly, Allen County residents who work in Putnam County, which is one county north. Now this color scheme isn't great, and I think we can all agree, because you could see the vast majority, which we saw on the map site, so over half of all residents who live in Allen County also work in Allen County. So we need to essentially make the color scheme a bit more interesting. And one thing I might consider doing here is if we look at this sort mechanism, so we could see that 2,000 is really the maximum number of commuters to an outside county. So what we're going to do is on our sheet, let's actually change the color scheme. So we click on color, edit colors. We have to go advanced here. It's a little confusing. Because we don't really care necessarily about residents who stay in the county and work in the county, so let's make the maximum color 2,500. So now you can actually see some variation in the color scheme. So you can see that Auglaize County, for instance, is the darkest. You can see nearby counties are somewhat darker, and then more far-flung counties in general tend to get lighter, meaning that there are fewer commuters. But some of the larger cities, which include Toledo, includes Columbus, includes Cincinnati, many of them have additional commuters as well. And so this is a map. Like we can create in Tableau, it's called a dashboard. So we can drag our map in here. Here's our map. Our legend, I would recommend making it floating so it doesn't take up quite so much space. Drag this to fill up the entire dashboard. Drag this so we can read the whole thing. Rename to where Allen County residents work. And bam, you've got a dashboard on Tableau. And so then you can save it online. Save to Tableau Public. Never give something the same name too many times. And bam, we have an online resource that folks can use and folks can interact with. And it's wonderful like that. And so again, this is something that you can create very quickly that can have impact and can be visualizing data from that, again, that very rich on the map site, which has really great data in terms of where folks in your communities live and work. And so what I've got here is the map that we had just developed with the tooltip. that we had developed. And I've also included here a data table, which shows essentially how many Allen County residents work in each of these counties, and again, ranking the top 50. And then down here, we also have a area chart, which is like a pie chart, but rectangular, so it fits a bit more economically on the screen. But essentially what it'll show here is that roughly half of all Allen County residents work in the county, and then it decreases from there. And then I also included a filter feature so that folks can actually click on a county and see roughly what that number is.